Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1917 and today's date is July 15th, 2019, and the title of the episode is Globalist Plan Shutdown, Trump, Fed Using Antiquated Policies. Boom. Now, before I get started, I wanted to talk about the Q coin. Have you heard about the new Q coin? Q has captured the mood of America and given a voice to a movement. You can now be a real part of that movement. This very special coin has deep meaning engraved in every space, from the 17 references to the lightning bolt, which is the key to another world. If you follow Q, this coin is a no-brainer for you. Go to greatawakeningcoin.com and use the code X22 Report to get $5 off when you buy 2 coins or more. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, it looks like the entire economic plan that Trump and the Patriots are pushing forward, it is starting to come together. Now, just because everything doesn't happen in a straight line, it doesn't mean that it's not working or this is not part of the plan. A lot of plans go off to one direction and then come back. And sometimes this is to get what you really want. And I believe this is what Trump and the Patriots are doing. Sometimes it seems like nothing is happening, and then all of a sudden, it's exactly what we thought was going to happen. Take, for instance, China. Now, Trump, he's been working on this trade deal. China is going to continually push back. They don't want to give. Trump is using leverage. He's using tariffs. He uses tariffs for many different countries now because it allows him to put pressure on that country, something they've never seen before. Why? Because they were given anything they wanted. This was part of the deep state, the globalist plan. Now there's a true negotiator in the driver's seat, and they've never seen this before. They've never seen someone come out and say, hey, we're going to be placing tariffs on you. Hey, we're not going to give in. Hey, we're going to keep pushing until we get what we want. And China, first of all, they've never seen this. And now they're seeing it. And they're stuck in a corner and they're trying to figure out a way to get around all of this. So Beijing right now, they brought someone else in. They brought someone else in to help Vice Premier Liu. And it looks like it's Zhang who is going to really drive the ship for China. But what does this really mean? It really means this is exactly what Trump wanted. Someone there to really negotiate with him. Now, this is coming out of the conservative treehouse. Beijing attempts to downplay the position of their hardline commerce edition, but the reality of the restarted trade discussions tells us a more fulsome story. Chairman Xi took the strategically presented bait and is going to engage in full confrontational trade war with Trump and the U.S. team. Ultimately, an openly hostile and aggressive position by China is exactly what Trump would prefer. Pretense is a painstakingly annoying negotiation strategy, and President Trump is predisposed to be a notoriously get-to-the-nub-of-it type of negotiator. Down south, the term would be, he doesn't suffer fools. Companies right now are departing China. The Belt and Road Initiative shrinking, and Beijing is burning through cash to subsidize their current manufacturing base. Existing tariffs remain a financial drain on China, not the U.S., not the consumers. In actuality, U.S. inflation continues to decline. Meanwhile, President Trump is hitting Xi with public questions about Beijing purchasing U.S. agricultural products, a previous promise. China appears to have accepted that Trump isn't going to concede an inch. Therefore, their position in the trade standoff is timed to exhaust around 2020 presidential election, which is very interesting. Despite what the U.S. media are claiming, Beijing is making very visible moves to withstand more than a year of status quo strain. Generally speaking, Trump has followed a 90-day process within most of the trade negotiations and discussions, which means he waits around 90 days as the U.S. team works to negotiate a particular point. And then, if nothing, he makes a larger move to cut the Gordian knot. If this pattern holds, we will likely see Trump do something significant to target the Chinese stalemate around September. Late September, that's the time frame. And like we said before, companies are now leaving China. We'll be getting into that in just a minute. But first, Trump tweeted out the following. China's second quarter growth is the slowest it has been in more than 27 years. The United States tariffs are having a major effect on companies wanting to leave China for non-tariff countries. Thousands of companies are leaving. This is why China wants to make a deal with the U.S. and wishes it had not broken the original deal in the first place. In the meantime, we are receiving billions of dollars in tariffs from China, with possibly much more to come. These tariffs are paid for by China, devaluing and pumping, not by the U.S. taxpayer. Now, the economic plan with China is working because one of the outcomes that Trump actually wanted, he wanted companies to leave China. Remember, the deep state, the globalists, they were pushing all the companies out of the United States and into China. Trump is reversing their plan. And when we look at this, we can see that there are companies that are moving out of China and some are coming back to the United States. So Yeti Holdings, iRobot Corp, Crocs, and many, many others are moving production out of China to countries such as Vietnam, India, Taiwan, Malaysia, and many more. And this is coming from Lovesac Company, the CEO. This is a furniture maker. He said, "We have been shifting production to Vietnam very aggressively. Once you move, you don't move back." Think about it. Why don't they move back? It's too expensive. So the cost of moving out pays off because they are moving someplace where there's no tariffs, but moving back doesn't make sense for them. And some of these companies, they're coming back to the United States. So the plan is working. Remember, we need to bring the companies back. We need to bring manufacturers back. We need to bring all of this back to the United States and out of China. Because the plan was to have China as the powerhouse. Why do you think Clinton was selling the secrets to China, bringing up their military up to the level of the United States? Because what was going to happen here, we were going to have a war. The United States was going to lose because they weren't putting any money into the military. China was going to be the dominant power. That was their entire plan. That entire globalist plan has been shut down. Now, the central bankers, they're trying to get ahead of the story that the Fed has no idea in what they're doing. Now, of course, this is planned with Trump and the Patriots to make it look like the Fed doesn't know what they're doing. And this is being pushed out there because later on they're going to blame everything on the Fed. But the other central banks, they're coming to the rescue of the Fed. And this is coming from the International Monetary Fund's Deputy Managing Director. He is out there defending the Fed's policy stance. And this is Tao Zhang. He said, "We consider what the Fed has been doing is consistent with the approach that's data dependent and done through well-communicated statements with the market. I think they're doing a fine job at this moment, and we hope they continue to do that job down the road," he said. "At the moment, we consider the Fed's approach as appropriate for the U.S. economy, and we do urge everybody, and particularly those major central banks and other policymakers, to follow the same approach, which is well communicated to the markets and data dependent." Now, think about this for a second. The IMF is out there defending the Fed that they're doing a great job. Now, remember, their plan was to raise rates. The ECB was going to follow. They were going to use this to bring down the economy. That was the central banker's plan. Everything has been reversed because the Patriots are now in control. What is the central bank going to say? The Fed doesn't know what they're doing? Of course not. But it plays right into the Patriots' trap because now the other central banks, the IMF, they're all backing the Fed. Think about this for a second. What happens when the entire system collapses and Trump blames the Fed? Because that's what's going to happen. All those individuals, all those mainstream media channels, all the central banks who've been saying that the Fed knows what they're doing a great job, they're all going to take the fall. Trump tweeted out the following: "We are doing great economically as a country. Number one, despite the Fed's antiquated policy on rates and tightening." Think about what he just said here. Fed's antiquated policy on rates and tightening. He said much room to grow. He's calling out the Fed again, saying that their policies are antiquated. Actually, their policies are not in place to benefit the American people. Their policies are in place to benefit themselves. And this will be let out to the public later on, how they were doing things behind the scenes that were not a benefit to the people. This is going to be done through an audit. The only way to bring the Fed to the forefront is to have a crisis. But Trump can't have this crisis just yet. He needs to win the election. Remember, what he's doing with the Fed, with interest rate cuts and stimulus, it's not to make the economy great, the central bank economy great. It's meant to keep the economy from collapsing. This central bank system is collapsing, and he doesn't want it to collapse right now because he wants to be reelected. He wants the economy to look like it's doing very, very well, which he's been doing. Afterwards, when he's won the election, he can then turn things around, allow the Fed to start raising rates. Yes, he's going to contradict them, but this is part of the plan. And all those people that said the Fed knows what they're doing, guess what? They're all going to go down with the Fed, because then we will then have a crisis. Trump will say, I was making the economy great. The Fed decided to do the opposite of what I was doing. And why did they decide to do this? There's an audit bill waiting in the wings that's going to be pushed forward, and Trump will sign it. And of course, there'll be other things going on. The mainstream media will bring up other things, and they'll try to make it seem like it was Trump. But in the end, the Fed will need to be audited through this crisis. Then, once the Fed is audited, it'll be brought out to the American people that the Fed was not working in the best interest of the United States, of the people. At this point, there'll be talks about nationalizing the Fed, the people taking over the central bank. And this is how the patriots are going to maneuver and get control of the entire economic system. And throughout this whole entire time, Trump and the patriots, they've been removing the globalist plan, setting up the central bank, and soon they will be ready to strike. When we talk about a great awakening, it just doesn't have to do with the swamp and those people that have committed treason and sedition and everything like that. It has to do with the central bank, with those individuals, those people not in government, those people that have to do with Epstein. It's all of it together. That's the great awakening, waking the people up to what is really happening and what these people have really done to this country and many other countries. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.